22nd, 2024 Finance Meeting, and I'd like to welcome Councilor Ocasio, Councilor Sullivan, Councilor Givner, who is on Zoom, and myself, and I'm expecting Councilor Jordan any moment, but we'll start. And since we have people on Zoom that are on this committee, a motion, I just mentioned you, and there you are. A motion to take a roll call vote that for the purposes of this meeting would be applicable to all motions to remove an item from the table, place items on the table, package items, or suspend the rules unless there is an objection. Okay, so you okay there? Because no. Okay, so we'll take up item number 1, the minutes of October 7th, 2024. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Motion to accept and approve the minutes.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Item number 2, ordered that there be and hereby appropriated for transfer fiscal year 2025 $33,000 as follows: from pay engineer $19,000 to pay senior civil engineer $14,000 for a total of $33,000. Can I hear a motion to take it off the table?
So moved.
Okay, and any questions? Carl is here from the DPW, and there he is. Any questions of Carl?
This is just another appropriation for engineering services.
Yeah, until we get somebody. And we all know what a great job Victoria is doing.
Hey, I guess my only question would be, obviously I'm supportive of this. So this is for 2 months worth, Carl, it looks like, according to the thing is, how is the candidacy process going? Are you looking to, one of the recommendations or suggestions was to have a headhunter or somebody to help you to recruit a candidate. How is that faring?
We could have to talk to Kelly about that. We haven't got engaged in a process of a headhunter right now.
Okay. Can you follow up with us? Because
sure.
Let us know, we'll count on you to kind of track that for us. Obviously, we'd like to retain somebody.
Yeah.
All right. I think one of our colleagues, I think it was Councilor MAGRATH-SMITH, had a pretty good suggestion, which was to look at the colleges too for recent graduates or people who might early in their careers.
Not for a city engineer.
Yeah.
You need someone with experience. I would say at least 10 years experience.
Yeah, I would think.
And they would have to have a PE license.
Of course, yeah, that you have to. Yeah, right. And you have to have so many, explain that to us. You have to work so many years before you get the actual license, or how does it work? What's the process to become an engineer?
The process to become an engineer is like in college, you take your engineering training exam, which you have to pass before you could take your PE exam. Okay. So you get your engineering training, you work for a civil engineer, a licensed civil engineer for 4 years before you're able to sit down to take the test. He has to sign off on your experience.
I see. Okay.
It's similar to what doctors and lawyers go through to get their bar or their medical license.
Okay, so the minimum amount of experience you would have would be 4 years, right? Because you have to work as sort of an apprentice for 4 years before you can sit for the exam and then theoretically pass the exam.
Correct.
Okay.
Minimum of 4 years, but it has to be the right kind of experience too.
Right, as a civil engineer.
You could do hydrology, you could do water resources, you could do structural.
Okay.
Municipal engineering is a little bit of jack of all trades.
Right. Okay. Very good. All right. Thank you very much.
Councilor Sullivan?
Carl, could you remind us what's the price range we're shopping in here?
It's $112,500 to $133,000, I think it is right now. That's what it's advertised.
Okay. I'm sure we've asked this before, but our surrounding communities, what are their?
I haven't taken a look at the surrounding communities, but 112 to 133 is a fair.
Fair.
It's fair.
Okay. Thanks.
I'd also like to welcome Councilor Bacon was there. I don't see her.
Yeah, I know
she was there. And also Commissioner of DPW Libby Hernandez, Jim Bartolome from the Police Department. Captain Isaiah Cruz is here, Sergeant Jer Hyde, Officer Borrego, and City Solicitor Mike Bissonette are also on Zoom, and Counselor Givner is on Zoom. So I'd like to hear a motion that we accept the transfer.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that be approved.
Okay.
Second.
Counselor Sullivan, because Counselor
Yes.
Counselor Devine, yes. Counselor Jordan?
Yes.
Counselor Givner?
Yes.
And Counselor Ocasio, yes. Okay.
I would just like to add that I come to you in front of the board, in front of the committee every few months to do these transfers because I'm taking it out of the salary line item.
Mm-hmm.
Once that frees up, then I could put it into the engineering services line item. That's why you see me a lot regarding this one.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to, if it's okay, I'm going to take item 4 out of order since it's about the ad hoc committee, a letter from Mary Monahan. I think we've all received that, so I would like to entertain a motion just to receive that letter.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I have to ask everybody.
Aye.
Yeah.
Okay, Counselor Sullivan?
Yes.
Counselor Devine, yes. Counselor Jordan?
Yes.
Counselor Ocasio?
Yes.
Counselor Givner?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then item number 3 is filed by Councilor MAGRATH-SMITH, ordered that the DPW Director and Conservation Director provide an update either in writing or in person as to the progress made in implementing the Urban Forestry Grant monies for 24-25. Move we take it off this table for discussion.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carl?
Yeah, no, I'm here. I spoke with Yoni earlier today. So me and him have been working on this grant as far as administering it. Just to let you know, there's a bid opening tomorrow for the Urban Community Forestry Program, which is the tree contractor. We had to go separately because these are federal funds, not the contract that we have existing with our own contractor right now. And we're also looking to lease equipment. So I'm preparing documents to put in front of the board, or not the board, I'm sorry, in front of the committee to not purchase, but lease a stump grinder.
Okay. Okay. And that's tomorrow. You're going to have a,
bid opening.
a press release or just a meeting?
No, it's a bid opening tomorrow.
A bid opening, okay.
We had already approved the money for the stump grinder, I recall. Didn't we already? Or
It was part of the grant.
okay.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions? Or okay, I'll make a motion that we accept item number 3.
So moved.
Okay, Counselor Sullivan?
Yes.
Counselor Devine, yes. Counselor Jordan?
Yes.
Counselor Ocasio?
Yes.
Counselor Givner?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, thank you, Carl. Okay, a little early, but I think he's here. This next one is filed by myself, ordered that in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A, the support and incentive grant of $306,443, no match grant, and authorizes the establishment of a fund or other method appropriate for the accounting of the receipts and expenditures of all resources associated with the administration of said grant. Hear a motion to take it off the table for discussion.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. I believe this is Police Department? Yes?
It is, yes.
Okay, so whoever wants to talk about the grant, feel free. It's a fairly large grant with no match, which is good.
Yes, so this is the FY2025 STATE 911 Department Support and Incentive Grant. We were awarded a total of the $306,443. The start date of that contract was September 10th, 2024. The end date is June 30th. This grant it is a no-match grant. It is going to be used to supplement some of the salaries and overtime that we have in dispatch, as well as purchasing much-needed equipment for our dispatch center regarding some of the computers.
And just what kind of equipment?
I Officer Borrego would be able to speak to the technical terms, but there's a switch within the computers that are used for the radio traffic, and the switches we have in there currently are starting to malfunction and fail. They're older, so this grant will support those costs, which are about $15,000 per computer we have in there. So we will be, that is going to be a significant cost, and we'll be using part of this money to fund those purchases.
Okay, and you said this grant ends June 30th of 2025?
Correct.
Okay. Questions, anybody?
Nope.
Any questions out there in
Madam
Zoom
Chair?
land? Coco? Councilor Givner?
Yes. I'm just curious, when it says, when you say that the grant ends in June 2025, does that mean the funds have to be spent by then, or does it mean something else?
Correct. That would be June 30th would be the last day we'd be able to spend any funds from that account.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, motion to accept the grant?
Second.
All those in favor? Sullivan?
Yes.
Devine? Yes. Jordan?
Yes.
Ocasio?
Yes.
Givner?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that takes care of that.
Thank you.
Do you want to take up, I think, 6 and 7 together and then 8?
Yeah.
Okay. So a motion to take up items 6 and 7 together, and this for discussion. This is from item 6 from the Holyoke Retirement Board, PARAC Investment Report 2023, and item 7 from the Holyoke Retirement Board, Annual Statement of the Financial Condition of the Holyoke Retirement Board. And everybody should have gotten this information a couple weeks ago, actually, in a regular city council meeting. So if you have any questions, who's ever here from the retirement board, if you want to come up and have a seat, in case unless there's no questions, then you don't have to. I'm sorry?
Nobody.
Oh, I thought you were. No? Okay. Well, if
He's a retirement board member in waiting, maybe, according to my mail. So good luck to you on that. By the way.
Well, I didn't realize that Tony DeLude had called me earlier, and he said he sent a correspondence, but that's what I'm looking for right now. So I don't know if you want to, if you have questions of him, and we can table this and call him in at another time.
Yeah, maybe we just table it, Madam Chair, and then have them. It's nothing dire. Obviously,
Right.
Overall, they're doing really well. It's good, I think, to at least once a year check in, and the fact that their annual statements had come out, I thought was a good opportunity. So, it'd be good to hear from Tony at some point, and just how's things going.
Okay, do I hear a motion to that effect?
Yeah, motion to table 6 and 7.
Okay, Councilor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilor Devine, yes. Councilor Jordan?
Yes.
Councilor Ocasio?
Yes.
And Councilor Givner?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll table that for a future meeting. All right, so now we have item number 8, filed by Councilor Bacon and Jordan, order that the treasurer, along with key people, please provide an update on progress and next steps for converting to self-insurance to provide health insurance for city employees. Please also review with the City Council the calculations on how FY2025 insurance budget was calculated. And that was tabled September 23rd, 2024. So there are people here. So why don't you come on in and have a seat and press the microphone so the green light lights up. And if you could mention who you are, even though we know who you are.
The key, you're very key. Rory, you're very key. Please.
And Kelly's on her way. I know we were both in our respective offices working, and I saw the meeting was moving at a pretty good clip, so I decided to come up now.
Yeah.
There's a hand up.
She's on her way over.
Okay. Okay. All right. So who would like to
So I'll
start
just
the-
quickly,
Rory,
mess around with these.
that's okay. That
Here.
happens all the
I'm
time.
used to sitting at this desk. Sorry, Counselor. So I'll just quick introductions. Kelly's on her way, and then really the first, I think what the meat of this order is to talk about calculations. How did we come up with stuff? So we'll be handing it over, and here's Kelly right now. So we of course have Kelly Curran, the Director of Personnel. I'm Roy, I'm the Treasurer. In the audience, just so we are all clear, we got Chris Butler and Joe O'Connor. They are both members of the Executive Board of Section 19. In addition to that, they are both members of the newly established Board of Trustees that were the employee representatives. So Section 19 appointed them and a couple other folks to be part of this. And then, of course, we have Steve Corbin from Dowd Insurance and Maureen Ross O'Connell from Weber Grinnell. And they are our insurance brokers and have been co-brokers on this with the city for a very long time. And it was really their analysis that they had done, and then an independent analysis that we've gone over in front of this body before Cooking Company that kind of led us down this path that we're currently on. So with that, unless there's any questions about those introductions, I would just hand it right over to the brokers.
Okay.
If I may, Madam
Yes.
Chair, just real quickly,
Yeah.
the gist of the ask today is obviously sort of two phases.
Sure.
One is, how did we arrive at the FY25 budget?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's certainly one component. The other piece is hearkening back to the conversation about the conversion to
Yes.
self-insurance, and
Yes.
it sounded like that was the recommendation at some point.
Yes.
And we had left that, I think we had that conversation around maybe Christmas-ish to January-ish so basically almost a year ago. Yep. And we were talking about hitting benchmarks and milestones to move us along that path. So in the course of your comments and thoughts, it's where are we in the continuum here so that we can kind of see where we're going with all of this.
So if it's all right, I'll just give you the kind of high level where things are at, and then we can get into some of those other items. So you're absolutely right. We've talked about this a number of times. The council adopted the acts that allowed for the creation of a health and dental trust, and that's what we're talking about, both health and dental, when we're having this conversation. We explored all the options. We explored staying fully funded, which the brokers will be able to go into more in depth, what numbers we were looking at the time. I know we touched on this briefly as well during budget season. And then ultimately deciding to go self-insured. As I've mentioned previously, and this is what we're living in right now, we kind of have our feet in both worlds because the nature of insurance, again, we can get more into what this is. It's not like all of a sudden one day you flip a switch, right? The claims that were already being covered by our previous carrier under a fully insured plan, where we had Health New England and we had Health Equity and we had some of these other things, there's some carry over, there's some time in which those claims are still coming in.
The run out.
Exactly, the run out. And we're still reconciling some of that. So there are still some things that we're being billed for that relate to the fully insured plan. And at the same time, we've got our other foot firmly in the self-insured plan, all the while being able to keep a close eye on this so that when we get to the renewal period, which traditionally takes place sometime after January, we can review where we're at, and if we decide maybe this hadn't been a good option, and we're not seeing anything that leads us to believe that, but if we were, as I've mentioned, there's off-ramps to this. So that's where we're at right now. The trust itself, the documentation's been submitted to the council and to the committee. That was executed in June. that was executed after the budget was voted on. That's when we executed that.
Which contract is this, please?
This is the trust. This is the actual trust, the formation of the trust.
Okay.
That you guys should have a copy of that. If not, we can certainly send it along again. But it's been.
Excuse me. This is what Kelly gave us.
Yeah, it's an executed
Would have been
copy.
last time.
It's quite dense. You're more
We
than
can
welcome
make
to
sure
read
we
it.
Get you a copy.
Okay.
But again, staying with kind of high-level view here, what it boils down to is it's a 7-member. We wanted to structure this similar to the retirement board, so it's a 7-member board. 3 members are employees or representative of the employees. 3 members represent the city. And when we talk about the city, keep in mind we're not just talking about City Hall and Annex City. We're talking about the school department, we're talking about gas and electric, and we're talking about the water department as well, because they are part of this. They're part of our health insurance plan. The mayor appoints 1 person. The superintendent, just because of the large population of the school department, appoints 1 person. And our auditor, who is appointed by the city council, is also a member of the trust. The trust, and then of that, the 6 of them get together, and they'll elect a 7th member. So, as you'll see in the trust documentation, it called for kind of an initial trust, like an initial meeting to set up an annual meeting. That meeting took place. And this is all subject to open meeting law, so that meeting was noticed. It was a very short meeting. The only purpose was to set the date of the annual meeting. Kelly and I were both appointed temporarily to that under the terms of the trust, but she and I are no longer, we will not be the representatives moving forward. The mayor will be appointing somebody, and Superintendent Soto will also be appointing somebody in addition to the auditor.
When's the annual meeting? The
annual meeting's coming up in November, November 13th. And so that'll be noticed as well. So that's kind of where we're at as far as the trust is concerned, as far as the steps that we've been taking.
Who are currently the 7 people?
So currently, we're still, the mayor and the superintendent need to submit their names.
Okay.
But the other 5, I can tell you, one's Tanya, our city auditor. We have, in addition to Chris Butler and Joe O'Connor, we have Quentin Donahue, who's the 7th person for the first year, and then, remind me, it's another Chris Kelly? Chris Adams.
He's representative of UFCW.
And they represent a number of different units in the city. So that's collective bargaining units in the city. So those are the 7 members, well, the structure of the 7 members, I should say. And then the meetings will happen, you know, at a time that, you know, was decided on by those members. We are aware of the, you know, 5:30 meeting time. We're already, 5. Yeah, we are aware of that, and that's been discussed as well. So, so that is, we'll be honoring that, or the trust will be honoring that. And then whether it becomes a monthly meeting or a quarterly meeting, you know, that really will depend on the members themselves and how they plan to operate. But
if I can just ask
yes.
a quick question, this trust that's present
correct
in November at
yes.
the annual meeting, could that change?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Those
their terms
could it change? Yeah, if we follow the terms of the you know, it does talk about the appointment, the removal, the nomination process. There's a lot of governance as part of that document. So certainly, like we've all served on boards, right? We've all served on boards where you're appointed maybe the first folks, or it's 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, and you cycle on, cycle off. All those things are written out in there. So
I think if you just give the city council
yeah.
a list of who those people are,
absolutely, we
where
can
they're
forward
from,
that.
I think that'll help.
The sense I have, if you were to ask me, I don't expect there to be any changes. I think folks that the Section 19 committee have put forward are all folks that are long-standing members of that committee who have been very involved with the health insurance process. I think that it's one of the good examples of both management and labor sitting down at a table and working very well together to come up with a common goal, because we all understand that while the health insurance is one of the largest single budget lines in the city, you know, what the employees get, what we get, what it means, because this isn't just a budget line, like pick a budget line that it's just coming out of. This is also coming out of everyone's pocket that's sitting up here. It's coming out of their pocket, and then the city's having to come up with it as well. So there's multiple things, and at the same time, also negotiating with the carriers. So it's always been like a multi-part negotiating process. So we've really come together over the past number of years, and I think there's some good stability, especially for this first year as we explore this, continue to explore this. So with all that said, that was a lot, I know.
This is a great information.
I'm going to hand it over to Steve and to Mo, who can really get into the numbers, because they are the experts on the numbers, and I know that that is of utmost importance.
Okay. Whoever wants to go first.
Just had to make sure the mic was on. All right, Steve Corbin from the Dowd Agencies. Like Rory said, Maureen and I have been working with the city for a long time now. I think I'm going on maybe my 18th year as broker, and my past life as a Blue Cross Blue Shield rep, so I have some detailed knowledge regarding the city and how things work and how the insurance has been going over the years. So what I'm going to do first is I really want to kind of take a few minutes and just maybe take a step back and just give a quick overview of kind of what goes into, you know, self-funding and why it's a little bit different than fully insured, aside from having the trust and everything that Rory talked about. And I know, you know, we had a presentation earlier by a consultant as well that did some of this, but just as a refresher, because that was some time ago. And then we'll go into kind of, you know, where the numbers came from and how we came up with what we thought was a logical budget for this year for the city for the healthcare funding. So the first thing is in the back of your packet, and for those of you the councilors that are on Zoom, I believe a copy of this packet should have been distributed via email earlier in the day. So if you don't have one, I have copies and I can leave some extras behind. So. But one of the first things I want to look at is it's just in the back of your packet, and it's the broken up $100 bill, because I think this is a great exhibit that shows how the self-funded dollar is broken up. It's the last page in the packet that I gave out. Yep.
Last page of it. Yep.
And so the components are broken down on fixed costs and variable costs. And so the fixed costs, these are the knowns. This is what we know, what we're getting into. These are the rates that are set forth. The first one is administrative fees. That includes administrative fees from the health insurance carrier as well as broker fees. We have aggregate stop loss. That's an insurance that's purchased to cover the city in the event of a lot of claims. The insurance companies put a cap on what will actually get paid out throughout the course of the year. So if you hit that dollar amount that the insurance companies put forth, then you're no longer responsible for payment of the claims. And the second one is what's called specific stop loss, and that's a premium as well, so it's a known entity. And what this does is it covers the city when it comes to catastrophic claimants. So if you have an individual, and we'll talk about, you'll see where I'm coming from in a few minutes, but if you have individuals on your health insurance that accumulate over the course of a year a certain dollar amount of claims, you get capped. This really can prevent this, large losses within the city, because $1 million claims are not unheard of these days. Especially what we're seeing, some prescription drugs are costing $40,000, $50,000 on a month. So those add up. So the specific stop loss caps that out. Right now, the city purchased one that's $350,000. So no one person under your plan will ever accumulate more than that. And then the variable pieces, these are your actual claim dollars that come in. So this is because you're self-funded, you're 100% responsible to pay the claims up to those thresholds that I just previously mentioned. So you have your medical claims and your pharmacy claims. So these are the 5 pieces that we consider when we're looking at going self-funded and whether or not it makes sense. And without going through all 4 of the past 4 years of claims exhibits, what I'll pretty much do is probably just draw your attention to maybe the last couple years, but it's mostly what we're going to talk about is on this overview sheet where I kind of break some things down for you so you can kind of see what's going on. And feel free to stop as I'm going along to ask for further clarification. I just want to make sure that I'm not assuming something and kind of just talking through something. So the first bucket that we're looking at here on this overview is what I did is I pulled a 4-year history of actual medical claims. So we're able to get reports from the carriers that just break out the actual medical claims, the pharmacy claims, and then those versus the premium you're paying.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. So for these 4 years, these are the 4 sheets we have right here.
Correct.
It says this is only an illustration. Actual claims data will be determined by the carriers.
No, this is, yeah, my apologies. That is actual claim data. So it's claim data that I did pull from the carrier. So I failed to remove that line. Sometimes I'll do projections and I'll keep it in there. So these are 4 full years of claim data. So thank you for clarifying. Yep.
All right.
Yep, thank you. Yep. So yes, for clarification, this is actual claim data from the carriers. Yep. So it's not any projections that I'd made here, so there's no assumptions. So each year I broke out what the actual medical claims were. One of the other reports that I didn't include here because it does have some medical information, it does have individual claimant information, so from a HIPAA perspective, it just wouldn't be something I could bring here. But what it does is it shows the amount of large claims that the city had in any given year, and it breaks it out by year. So that column that says spec, what that is that's the claim dollars that would be above the specific deductible. So this is claim dollars that individuals within the city who are on the insurance plan had accumulated, but because you have that specific stop loss insurance, the city would not be responsible to pay that. Sorry, I keep popping in the microphone. So what I do then is I actually remove the specific claims from the total medical claims because it's not the city responsibility to pay those claims. So when we do our trend adjustments, when we do figure out what percentage increase we're looking for in the next year, those are claim dollars that we don't want to trend forward because they're not your responsibility anyways. They're paid for by the stop loss insurance company. So that third column there, that is the claims minus claims over that specific amount. The fourth column, so this one I actually did have to make a bit of a assumption on here because what we did is we took your prescription drug claims. So under a fully insured arrangement, like in the pharmaceutical world and in the pharmacy benefit management world, there's a thing that's called rebates. So basically, drug manufacturers pay pharmacy benefit managers money to have their drugs listed as preferred brands on their formulary or preferred generics. And they do that via these rebates. So in a fully insured arrangement, the carrier, the insurance company, or the pharmacy benefit manager, they keep those rebates. They don't pass those on. I mean, they tell you they're going to pass them on, through lower premiums, but I don't typically see premiums going downward. So what we did is we took an assumption that you would get about a 10% rebate, which is what we see on self-funded groups. Also, with this year, Blue Cross Blue Shield actually enrolled you in a specialty drug program where members can opt into getting specialty drugs sourced from different venues, different ways to get it. And there's a savings that we've actually seen a good amount of savings already from that program. But we do anticipate that there'd be about a 10% savings to your overall prescription drug cost. So that's, again, a number that we didn't want to trend forward because if you're going to see those savings, we didn't want to account for that dollars into future dollars. So we broke all this down into an average monthly. So it was a full 48 months of data. So we divided everything out by 48 months. And we came up with, an average monthly claim cost of $912, $125. When we removed the average stop loss claim amounts, that number reduced to 852. We'll call it 853. It's close enough.
Excuse me, what was the SL again for?
That's the stop loss. That's the money that was above the specific deductible.
Thank you.
Yep. And so what we did also was assume a 15% trend. And what trend is, that's medical inflation. So that's what insurance companies and underwriters utilize to kind of understand what your claims costs are going to be a year from now, because you want to make sure that you're collecting enough premium or enough, enough money to put into that trust fund to cover claims, a year from now. So the claims cost is going to be a little bit more, in 12 months than they were today. So we need to trend that number forward. So when we go ahead and do that, we trend those numbers forward at the 15% and then annualize it and then combine it. We look at a combined medical and pharmacy claims of about $16.2 million. So the admin and the stop loss premiums, those were known amounts. So we're running our stop loss insurance through Blue Cross Blue Shield as well. So the admin fees, that's a known amount. So we can just plug that dollar amount right in there. And so that's at 2.3, we'll call it 2.3 million. So the total the total that we estimate for claims and administrative fees for the fiscal year 2025 is at 18.5 million, excuse me. So now we got to establish what our starting point was. And so when we looked at our 2024 Health New England premium, because that's who you were with prior to moving over to Blue Cross Blue Shield, that was a little over 17 million. And then we figure out that percentage difference, it's about 8.89% difference between what you're paying now and what you should pay to cover the entirety of your claims costs in fiscal 25. So we look at that. That's the estimated increase to provide a level funding. So that's what we think you would need to put in there just to break even at zero next year. So I know the actual budget line item was put in for a 10% increase over what the current was, because that is, you do want to be conservative in year one and in year two as well. You don't want to take that many risks because during this period of time, you are also looking to put some money into your trust fund to give you a little bit of a little balance, a little leeway, a little comfort zone, so to speak, in case something happens in upcoming years. We can look back and if you have a healthy trust, you can invest in it and not have to increase the rates as much as you would for your employees. So I know that's a lot to digest, and I'm sure you have questions. So.
Yep, I have some questions.
I knew that, Councilor Jordan.
Yep.
And I'm glad you do have questions because you do understand this. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Couple things. You used an assumption of a 15% medical cost trend. Is that typical for the market? And number two is that our experience that we're seeing a 15% claim trend?
I would say that it's typical for the market. Anywhere from
year over year, 15%.
Year over year, yeah, not 15%. Like everybody's not seeing a 15% increase, nor have you guys been seeing a 15% increase. But when you look at what they use the term medical trend. I don't necessarily think that it's inflation or trend. It's contractual increases at the health insurance, and it's something I know you're familiar with and how that works from a contracting perspective. So. I did not look back and see what your actual annual increase is year over year. I know that what we've seen from a fully insured perspective, we're probably in the last 4 years most likely looking at an average increase of, excluding this current year because we did move to self-funded, I would have to say it would give or take, if I was a venture guess, about 7 or 8%, but we've made some changes to address that. I do want to note that the fully insured renewal that was coming out from Health New England was well over 20%. So that's what they were looking at to be held whole, harmless, so to speak. And then we went out to the market to get competitive quotes. Blue Cross Blue Shield was the only one that put a fully insured number on the table. All the other carriers declined to quote, and they were approximately 20% as well.
So is the thinking, Steve, that we want to use a very conservative cost trend here to just kind of bulk it up a bit? Is that the thinking? Or?
Absolutely. Yeah, you want to be conservative. And I think that's consistent with the message that Cook and Company gave during her presentation as well, is that going into this, you don't want to take the savings right away, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to, you want to be conservative in year one because you number one, you never know what can happen. If you have, I always talk about self-funding in a life cycle that I consist of 10 years. So if you think about it in a wheel, in those 10 years, 2 of the best years you've ever had from a claim experience, 2 of the worst you've ever had from a claim experience, and the other 6 is who your population is.
you don't want to go into self-funding, be aggressive, and have your first year self-funded be one of those worst years you've ever had. Because when we rewind and look at fiscal 24, when that finished out, when we were able to get all the final data from Health New England, we understand why they were coming at it for a 20% increase. Because one of the points I do make, when you do go back and look at the claims data, you'll see what I put in there as a surplus amount, and that's how much you would have. That's how much the health insurance company kind of kept, so to speak. So last year's surplus was a -$1 million. So that means, you know, Health New England, you know,
Right.
they lost money on you last year, but they made it in previous years.
Right.
So
Right. Exactly.
I just don't want you don't want this year to be another one like that, and then not have the reserves in your trust fund to cover it.
Just so I'm understanding where we're at currently, we're still in the fully funded model for right now, or did we actually convert on X date?
No, you're self-funded. The conversion occurred on 7/1. So this fiscal
Okay.
year, you moved over to contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield. So they're administering your self-funded program, and they're the stop-loss carrier as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, this was part of the disconnect I think we had. If you recall, when we had this meeting a year ago, we were going to get benchmarks as to when this was all going to happen. So I don't think we were ever received we converted over.
It was discussed at the budget. We knew at the budget we had discussed it. That was the budget number.
Well, we discussed the number, but I don't think
Yeah.
it was clear, at least in my eyes, that it was converting from fully. Not that this is a bad thing,
Yeah,
of course.
no,
but I'm
absolutely.
just saying,
Just
I didn't
absolutely.
pick up on the fact that
Yeah.
it had converted on 7/1
Yeah.
to self-funded.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's when I was talking about kind of how we've got a foot in both worlds right now. Is we're still dealing with some of that runoff from the fully insured, just because some of the products that we had. I mean, there's still claims. I mean, maybe the claims are from June. I mean, sitting here in October, we're not doing it now, but for the past few months, it's been, you know, still dealing with a little bit of that. But Blue Cross Blue Shield is covering is
The TPA.
everything.
Yeah.
Which is a lot different than
And the stop loss we're buying through TPA,
Everything.
through Blue Cross?
Yes.
everything's through Blue Cross. And the one thing that we, you know, assuming that things continue to go well, the one thing that we made a conscious decision on, spoke with Section 19, and I believe we kind of briefly covered at a previous meeting, is Steve mentioned the pharmaceutical plan. There are other options. We could look to other potential vendors that offer more rebates, more programs, other types of things. Maybe that means a little bit more legwork on the employees' side, but maybe that means a little less coming out of their paycheck each week. But because we didn't want to take on too much all at once, we said, even though maybe that'll be a cost savings, let's see how this all goes first. So that may be the next phase of this, is not having Blue Cross do our pharmaceutical piece. It might be a Smith RX. It might be a different vendor entirely that we haven't looked at yet. And again, that's a whole other scheme.
Not one of my questions for tonight.
Yeah.
The TPA administrator, Blue Cross, what percentage are they charging us?
It's a flat fee.
Right, and what is that fee?
It's 59 change. I think it's 59.64.
59.64.
Yeah, and that's a per member charge.
Per member charge. What does that turn out to be as a percentage of the claims?
I'd have to do the math on that.
Okay. What does that aggregate out for the course of a year? It's
Through the course of the year.
so you're saying
1.1 million is for the TPA.
1.1 million.
Yeah, and that includes the 20% broker, the $20 broker fee as well.
So that includes the $20 broker fee?
Yeah. Yeah, so 1.156, that's a combined administrative fee. That's both Blue Cross Blue Shield and the broker's fees.
Okay. 59, you said 56?
Yeah, so 59.64
Yeah.
and a flat 20 on the broker fee.
So total is 79.64.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah, the current administrative fees and stop loss costs are on the handout labeled FY24. I use those to project forward. So.
Okay. Yep. So $1.1 million is what 7964 converts into?
Correct.
Okay. So if we were to break that down, let's see, so that's 80, so 1/4 of that. So roughly the broker portion of it is about $250,000. Is that what $20? Again, I don't have a cal.
Yeah, no, that sounds about right. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And their fee is approximately 800. Is the other 850? All right. So 850 on. What's the standard for a TPA administrator these days, in your opinion? I'm assuming you interviewed a few.
Correct.
Do this.
Correct. There was some that were lower and then some that were higher.
What sold you on Blue Cross?
The combination with number one was it's Blue Cross Blue Shield, some of the deeper discounts. So I think what we're going to see from a claims cost is lower claims overall. They did have one of the lower TPA fees, but they also, when we combined it together, made some reductions because we also sold their stop loss with it. Their stop loss rates were some of the lowest that we were seeing in the market. So it made sense to go with their stop loss, which you can only purchase when you have them as a TPA. Correct, that's right. So they also, one of the things that Blue Cross Blue Shield does do is a typical TPA will bill you on a weekly basis for your claims that come out, and there's a lot of ebbs and flows from a cash flow perspective. And with the municipality, we know that's probably not the most ideal situation to have. So one of the things that Blue Cross does is they do a level monthly funding, so you know what you're going to be paying on a monthly basis. So there's no ebbs and flows like you would see in a normal TPA arrangement. So that was another one that was very important.
Okay.
Yep.
So if there was an additional amount of claims, they don't get paid any extra then?
Correct. It's a flat.
It's a flat.
It's a flat. Yeah. So it's all flat fees. So it's there's no incentive to pay out more claims at all. Yep.
Okay. Is that data available to us if we wanted to review the different, like you got an estimate from Cigna and United, and if
Correct.
we wanted
Yep.
to review the side-by-side on the different plans, if we wanted to take a look at that?
Yes, you could. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because we do that entire exhibit for the city and for the Section 19 committee on an annual basis. So those reports are readily available for you. Yep.
In terms of your broker services, between, obviously you guys have both been with the, you specifically, but your companies for quite a long time. About how much in resources is that? Like, in terms of the broker portion, are we getting, obviously there's you guys as consultants to us, but is there other dedicated services? Kind of give us what Holyoke gets for the 250, because I'm assuming you have staffing and approximately the hours of preparation, and that goes into your portion of
Oh yeah, certainly. I could actually provide you with an actual breakdown of what those services look like. Also, we've devoted a full-time employee to the city of Holyoke this year as well.
Okay. And that's all covered by this.
That's all covered by this, correct? Yeah. So the city has at their disposal a full-time employee to help handle, and she's already been in the city doing a number of different things. So she's been handling assistance with billing, reconciliation, auditing. She's invoicing some of the other units, because the city's kind of the aggregator for everybody, but they need to get the
Right.
funds in from everybody else, the DPW, the G&E, and the school department, things like that. So, so she's handling a lot with that. And then I think as we move forward into different open enrollment periods, Kelly's gonna, and I don't want to speak for Kelly, but she's available for Kelly to use for open enrollment, employee onboarding, things of that nature. So, yep.
And so Steve, in terms of, actually, interestingly enough, I don't think the broker fee has actually stayed relatively flat, or actually probably gone down over the years. In fairness, and of course, maybe you less know, so I was not always a big fan of the broker fee. And especially in the old days, I've had a number, but it's kind of ironic how the fee has kind of either flattened or gone down. Sort of inverse inflation. So I don't know if that means it was radically too high years ago to what it is today. But whatever that tells us, but it seems like it's not going up at 15%, that's for sure.
No.
But the point I wanted to just get in that is really just kind of understand it. And basically you hold Blue Cross accountable, or whoever our TPA administrator is for all of this, and that's appreciated, because they're basically just providing you with the reports, and your job is to analyze it for the leadership team, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And then you also have are very involved in the premium setting process, correct? Because that's very vital, right?
Absolutely.
There's obviously various consumer protection rules that are in place that if we don't set the premium right, we're not allowed to take a second bite and say, employees, you know, mail us some more. It doesn't work that way.
It's not.
Yeah, we have to absorb 100% of those costs if we don't set that correct. And I did want to ask you about that. Have we been doing a good job about setting the premium so that there hasn't been any shortages on the premium?
I think right now it's so early in the process, because we're only 3
How
months
about from
in.
last year?
Oh, so those are pretty much, we've done, I think in a fully insured world, I think our goal as brokers is to get that rate as low as possible. Because at the end of the day, the health insurance company is the one that's at risk. Right. So our goal was always to get that rate as low as possible. And I thought that Maureen and I had done a good job at that over the last few years. And even making some of the changes that we did. So we've done, we've wanted to do that. I think in the upcoming years, being that the city has made the change to self-funding, now it's much more of an involvement, much more strategic to make sure, like you're saying.
Because we've had some problem years.
Correct. You know,
I think there was a $450,000 shortfall one year, I recall, of premium to cost, and the city had to pick that up. There was,
we're going back to the pioneer days. Yeah,
Yes.
That was some
the
early.
Good old
that
days.
was the good old days of self-funding. That was a little bit of the Wild West, I think. It's much more under control now. But I appreciate what you're saying, because you're right. If we're off, and there's that shortage, then the city has to, because you can't go back to the unions, because that's a negotiated.
And if we overcharge, theoretically, and there's this surplus, besides obviously going into the pool, could we, or is it legal to do a rebate to the employees or give them some extra benefits to make up for an overage?
I think that's what some of these guys behind me are hoping for.
Right.
Yeah. So
and I guess my point in bringing that up, and I'll like to hear from Mo, because she's very experienced in this, is my point is always err on the side of caution and go more, and then we can perhaps give it back in another year, versus us being short and then taxpayers get left holding the bag. That's my only point.
Agreed. I mean, and that's the whole model this year.
In the mic.
Is that your green light, hopefully? Okay.
That is the intent and the model moving forward under the self-insured plan, to be very conservative, to get the trust fund to grow its balance, so that you can give premium holidays or whatever the trustees decide to do.
Yeah, if we have such a luxury. Okay, and what is the stop loss premium? And then why don't you give me that number first, please?
Sure. So the premium for the aggregate, and that's the one that covers the aggregate claims for the city if it goes over a certain threshold, that the stop loss carrier, that number is $3.84 per subscriber per month. The specific admin is broken down into two parts. So you have it as an individual contract. So if you have employee only contract, that number is $39.71. And for those folks that are enrolled in your family contracts, that number is $123.87. And again, that's per contract per month.
Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of the stop loss limits, when you were looking at that, and I know you had mentioned I want to say it's a $350,000 individual cap, right?
Correct.
Okay. So is there an aggregate cap too?
Yeah, so the aggregate cap, and I don't have the actual dollars in front of me, but what the aggregate cap is, Blue Cross Blue Shield comes up with what they believe the city's going to pay throughout the course of the year. Mm-hmm. And what they do is they add a corridor. So it's usually called the aggregate corridor, which is 125% of anticipated claims. So that's what that number is. I can actually get you that number. I just don't have it in front of me.
Okay. Yeah, that would be helpful for by way of follow-up. Yep. In thinking about the stop loss component, and when you were considering Blue Cross as the vendor, you looked at other vendors?
From a stop loss perspective, yeah. We looked at probably 4 different stop loss carriers, and
they were determined to be the best bang for the buck.
Blue Cross Blue Shield definitely was.
Yeah.
One of the big reasons why, aside from cost, because cost-wise they were one of the best ones out there as well. But one of the reasons why you look to keep, if you can keep it with the same TPA or a TPA that works nicely with others, is what happens is in this situation, the city's never paying out those large losses. So if there's $1 million claim, the city's never paying it out and waiting for the reimbursement from the stop loss carrier. So if you're working with like a Tokyo Marine as a stop loss carrier and they're not integrated with Blue Cross Blue Shield, now the city's paying out $1 million, and now they're waiting for the stop loss carrier to give them back the difference. So it's a great feature to have that integrated.
Especially in your infancy as a self-funded, right?
Absolutely. And as you move forward and you gain more experience and you know, from everybody within the city and how it operates, and the trustees of the, you know, get a little more experience, you may look at a different carrier to save some money. But
okay. I think that covers most of my questions at this point. That was very helpful. I guess in terms of I think the only other point I wanted to make about stop loss is you looked at different thresholds, I assume, to determine where the sweet spot was in terms of the amount of the cost of the premium versus the anticipated payback that you would get in terms of the stop loss, or did they only offer those thresholds at Blue Cross?
No, we looked at a number of different thresholds. 350, I think, is that sweet spot. Anything below that, you end up paying a lot more.
It's just not worth it.
It's just not worth it. Anything more than that, then you're putting the city at a little more risk. And it will, I mean, under Health New England, they also have a bit of a stop loss, and that's they call it their pooling point, where you know, it's still the city's held harmless for claims above that, and they were at 500,000. Yeah, 500,000. They were at $500,000. So we're still putting the city at less risk than what they were last year.
And it aggregates both professional claims and acute claims, like for hospital, and like potentially skilled nursing. It's all encompassed, and it includes prescription benefit, behavioral claims, any host of type of claims. Any exclusions to stop loss? No,
there's no exclusions on this one. And as a matter of fact, we had Blue Cross Blue Shield included no new lasers threshold in it. And what that means is if somebody was a high cost claimant that they knew about going into it, and they knew they were going to pay out, say, $1 million to $2 million in claims, they could do what's called the laser. And with that, they would typically either cover it at a higher deductible, maybe at $500,000 for that one, to keep the costs down, or they would exclude it altogether. So we didn't have anybody going in, but we also paid a little bit extra for a no new lasers contract, which means when they renew next year, even if you had a hemophiliac that's expected to pay $1 million, they couldn't cover them at a different level. So.
Is Hoyle covering the GLP-1 drugs?
I believe so, yes. Yeah. As long as medically necessary.
Those are the new, like Ozempic and all the other ones now, with the injections. They're quite expensive. Yeah, and is it like a fourth tier on the prescription? Yeah, those would be in one of those specialty tiers. So it would be a higher cost for the employee, not as much, because you know the prescription drug benefit that you have is pretty good. But it does have to be medically necessary. I don't think Blue Cross. Yeah, it's not for weight loss. Correct. They're covering the GLP-1s, but it's for the traditional purposes that they're supposed to be covered. Those are being excluded by a lot of plans today. Yeah. Thank you very much. Appreciate the questions.
Chair Devine.
I'm sorry?
Linda Bacon here. I'm sorry to be rude, but I'm having to use my phone and I don't know how to raise my hand on it.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I very much appreciate this presentation, because similar to Councilor Jourdain, I filed the order because even though the figure was in the budget, I wasn't clear that we had actually moved into the new model. And I am very pleased to be hearing this update from you and all the due diligence that you did. And thank you to Councilor Jourdain for asking all the pertinent questions. But this is good news to me, and I very much appreciate your thorough update.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Sullivan?
Yeah, just two questions, well, three. TPA admin and specific admin, what's the difference between the two?
Okay, so the TPA admin fee, that's the one that that's being paid towards Blue Cross Blue Shield to administer the claims adjudication, customer service, all the day-to-day operations that they would have, issuing ID cards, you know, processing claims, access to their networks. It also includes the $20 broker fee that we were talking about as well.
Right.
And so the other one that you were asking, the specific admin,
Yeah.
that's the cost for the stop loss insurance. So that's the you can call it an admin fee or a premium, but that's the cost for that stop loss insurance that the city purchases to cover for catastrophic claims, to make sure that they're not being harmed by catastrophic claims. It's capped out at $350,000.
Okay, because I'm looking at what, over the 4 years, the TPA only went up 5%, yet the specific admin went up 20%.
Yeah, so those were just some assumptions. The numbers that you're seeing there, those are some areas where I kind of took a little leeway to generate a self-funded projection for you, because we don't want to include fully insured administrative charges, because that's typically about 12 to 13%, which inclusive of broker fees. It's much less. So what we did is I kind of just trended backwards, because over a 4-year period of time, you most likely will see that stop loss administration increase about 5% each year, so thus equaling that 50%. But the TP admin, I just wanted to keep as a steady number, just because it you know, again, that's not something that's going to fluctuate a ton. Yep.
Okay, and then when I look at the prescription number, the RX number in the column.
Yep.
So in 24, the surplus was a negative 1.1 million.
Yep.
It can almost be fully attributed to just 2 months, and that never happened in any other 2-month period over that 4 years, where the prescription costs increased by over 100% in each of those 2 months, but were fairly constant throughout the other 10. And that number equals just about that 1.1 million.
Steve, is
yeah,
because of the large, there was towards the end of fiscal 24, there was a very, and when just so you know, when we talk about some of this stuff, we also don't have access to individual data. Our brokers do. There's HIPAA, we don't ask, but what we do get are reports saying things like, here are your top 10 biggest cases. And I will tell you that there was a pretty large claim towards the end of fiscal 24 that will continue to be covered by Health New England because of the policy at the time, that was over $1 million, and a lot of it was pharmaceutical, and a lot of it was a juvenile cancer case. And so that might be why you see that. I will tell you, having spent looking not at projections, but looking at the city's health insurance under the fully insured model for the better part of the last decade, various reports, the single largest driver are prescription costs. The single large, whether it was 6 years ago when there was a new Hep C drug that you had to be on, and you might have 5 people on that in 1 month, that's $2 million in 1 month, because it's $400,000 per pop per person. That's so, and you can go all the way down and say, well, if we took the top 5 out of the top 10 out, we're looking great, but that's not the way insurance works, unfortunately. But I think that's what we're looking at here. Those numbers always jump out to me as well, Counselor.
Well, what I'm getting at here is going forward, and we're only 3 months into the year, we're quite possibly looking at a number which was 5.5 million the year before, in 24, 4.2 million the year before that, 3.8 million, right?
Take it out.
Sure.
Going to, if this trend is what's going to continue, going to 11 million from 5.5.
I think one of the biggest differences between the plan we have now, and again, our brokers talked a little bit about this and certainly can expand on it when it comes to the pharmaceuticals, is so the example I just gave, if that is what was driving this, and I would believe that's part of it, a large part of it, under a fully insured plan, those discounts, those rebates, those
other types of things that are going to help. Certainly that's not going to help somebody with a very large claim, but if you take all of those other smaller claims that make up these numbers, if we're able to carve 10, 15, 20% off of that through these rebates, I would also tell you that, and this is something that we've dealt with on our end when we're actually dealing with the employees themselves, under one of the things that has been an immediate change that did change overnight was that there were over-the-counter medicines that doctors might prescribe, like they might prescribe you a heartburn medication, right? And they tell you just go pick it up. You know, it's the same stuff you get over the counter, but I'm going to write you a prescription because your insurance will cover it. Right. That sounds great, except for when you have to pay, when we have to start thinking about how those bills get paid. And Blue Cross actually has cut a lot of those types of things out. So we expect on a few different fronts pharmaceutical costs to go down. But that's why I think it's really important when we're looking at this. I understand your point. You're absolutely right that if we have 2 or 3 years that trend in that direction, this was not a good idea. But
I'm more concerned if the next 9 months continue in the same direction.
We're not seeing that so far.
We're sitting on a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
This is $6 million shortfall.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see this steady incline like that. I think that what Rory was talking about was that individual claimant that was $1 million. And you got to remember that the city gets capped out at $350,000 on that particular claim. So even though the claims are there for that particular person, the city's held harmless. So those dollars come off at the top. What we're looking at in these exhibits prior years, they're aggregate. So I'm not pulling out the discounts. I'm not pulling out the rebates. I'm not pulling out the claims over specific. I do that when I come into here into the projections when I'm projecting forward for the upcoming year. The other thing is there are programs in place on the specialty drugs now where the employees actually get a discount or even get them for no cost if they follow this program through Blue Cross Blue Shield. If they choose not to follow the program, they do pay a higher percentage of it, so the cost gets shifted onto the employees. To date, I think we've identified 6 or 7, and everybody's participated in it, and the costs were cut in half from a specialty drug perspective. If we move in upcoming years to a pharmacy carve-out, they have amazing programs available to really cut your pharmacy costs in half. I have clients on pharmacy carve-outs where specialty drugs, a $30,000 specialty drug, they're putting the employees on a program where it's paid for outside of the insurance by grant money and by pharmaceutical company money. So the self-funded client doesn't even take a hit on it. So there are a lot of different programs out there, and there's a lot of flexibility we have to impact things moving to a self-funded. So I think I share. I think that some hesitation, right? Anytime you do anything, you take in risk like this. So I share that, and that's why I think we're conservative in our rate projections for year 1. So.
I think if I'm still a little lost in understanding, if in May and of June of this year, just 4 months ago, it was $974,000 paid out in 1 month, compared to in previous months of 360, 340, 330.
Councilor Sullivan, I think I need to make a correction to this spreadsheet because I'm looking at these numbers and I share your concern, but more so, it looks like whoever filled in this information for me repeated the medical claims under the pharmacy column. So I think that the pharmacy numbers are overstated. So that would give me, I wasn't sure what you're alluding to, but now as I'm opening this up and looking at it and see what you're talking about, I think that it's matching exactly the medical. So I think that those numbers are overstated a little bit. So I'm going to go back to the office tomorrow morning. I'm going to plug in the correct numbers and I'll resend that out. I don't think it necessarily is going to have earth-shattering change to any of our projections for the upcoming year. I think, again, the desire was to be conservative and to make sure that the funding was there. So,
well, it would wipe out that negative surplus.
Yeah, you certainly are right. It would. So last year, I mean, it would definitely look like a better year than, because I think the numbers that we're looking at are probably closer to the. So we're probably looking at overstatement of about $90,000 there.
Which would,
or maybe, I'll have to do the math. I'll double check on that.
Looks like the run rate was about 365, 400.
And it May looks the same numbers as well.
May and June look like,
yeah, May and June, exactly. Those two look exactly the same. So I think that
could be $1 million pickup right there.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
It adds a lot. It's a better look for much more conservative.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, my apologies for that. I'm sorry I didn't catch that ahead of time.
Yeah. Do I get a 10% rebate for
you get the finder's fee.
All right. Thank you.
Kevin,
they just did that to make sure we're reading them. Question. As I understand, but correct me if I'm wrong, though, when we have the enabling statutes, 32B, that allows us to even do any of this, where in the process do we get an actuary that has to sign off on all of these numbers, that reviews these? I would assume that we can't just make up numbers, right? I mean, it isn't, we have to make sure we're charging enough, that there's somebody that's professionally certifying that. As you know, the whole point of any risk pool is that you're charging enough so that you have these ebbs and flows, back to the point you're trying to make about building a cushion, right? Is there an actuarial certification over our fund, and is there an, that has to certify and approve our plan and proposals?
Not that I'm aware. I understand your question. And so, like I said, we structured some of this like the retirement board. We view a lot of the way we'd like to see this operate like the retirement board, where the trust itself is doing exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
That isn't to say it couldn't happen or won't happen. I'm not aware of anything that mandates that. But you're not asking, I would say where we're at right now, the way this has always gone, a little bit different than you think about the retirement board, where you need an actuarial, because we all understand.
Right.
That's just the way it is. This is slightly different in that the trends, the experience is experience. We can actually see how many people that we have enroll, and this is why we've, even under the fully insured model, we've talked about during budget time in the past, where this is how many people we expect if we have a year where 10% more people enroll and we didn't budget enough for the employer side, we'd have to come back and figure that out, right? So I think you're asking a very good question, but the answer of, is it required? I'm not aware of any requirement.
I'll look into it, but it seems like even if it's not required, it's something we would want to do, because you would want to do some sort of Monte Carlo analysis that says you've got a risk pool of 1,200 people, which is not the biggest risk pool. I mean, it's not small on the other hand, but you have all this. Now, granted, you have this, thank God, we have the stop loss analysis, so you have these bumpers that are there, but you would seem to me you would want to make sure that, what is our cushion, what are the doomsday scenarios, what are the, the rosiest scenarios, and then they do some sort of bell-shaped curve statistically that says, this is where we should be, and 2 standard deviations out, you cover 98% of the analyses, and by having your stop loss, it covers the bumper at the high end, right?
Absolutely.
So it just seems like we would want to just make sure it's actuarially sound.
And I agree.
Something to consider.
No, and I think that's exactly the role of the trust and the trustees is to look into that. I would say that, and our friends sitting in the audience, and I even think Jim Bartolome, who Bartolome, who was a longtime member of Section 19 and somehow got off. I don't know how who he talked to about that, but you know, a lot of those meetings that we have early in January, in February, and in March, those are the exact conversations that we're having.
Okay.
We bring in the carriers. The brokers put an analysis together. What were the claims? What were the driving factors? What are we really looking at? Now, that's under a fully insured. Now, under the self-insured model,
I'm not so worried about fully funded, though, because
No,
the risk is so much less.
No, and I'm
Yeah.
with you. I'm just saying that that was kind of how things had been reviewed previously. I think that you're absolutely right that it is something that the trust should look to do, and the trust document would allow for them to procure that type of service and bring somebody in to do that.
See, for example, like, not this is carrier side, but on the provider side, representing hospitals and doctors, when we enter into these risk-based agreements, we have to have actuarial certifications. I honestly, I haven't. I'll go back to the statute and look to see if there is anything in the regs with us. But I know before we're allowed to take on, you know, putting ourselves into a risk pool, they want to see what is the probability of the risk, probability of the downside, because this is like ultimate downside, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're ultimately self-funded, and, you know, is it that we're supposed to, you know, have a fund, like say year one, where it's like is really kind of tough, right? Because you have to be, like you say, I can see why we're being extra conservative, because if we don't build up a kitty and we had an immediate, it's almost like when you retire, that's the 1 year when the first year you retire, you don't want the stock market going down 20%,
yeah.
right? Because it's like, that's the one that really punches you in the gut. So if we had that situation, like, we have the general fund, I assume, the full faith and credit of the city, to the extent that's full faith and credit these days. But, you know, what would we tap into to pay that shortfall? And I guess what my point is, it kind of keeps everybody honest if we have an actuary kind of looking and seeing, like, okay, this was the medical claims history, and this is the background, and this is your 1,200 people, and, you know, you have X number of children, you have X number of this, and, you know, the average age of the pool. Granted, I think we kick folks into like Medicare Advantage or Medicare right at a certain age, but that might be something just for the board to consider, is something, even if it's not a requirement. I don't think it would be that expensive. I think we pay like maybe $5,000 a year to do like certain products that are pretty advanced, and it's not really expensive. Okay, so moving on from this, which was excellent. Thank you very much. Excellent presentation, and so thankful that you're moving in this direction. I think it's great. It gives us more control over our destiny. A couple of different points. One, in looking at it at this point, do you see stability now as we calculate going into the FY26 budget, that we won't see a 10% jump? Maybe more like we've built a cushion here on medical cost trend, we learned tonight. So is that mean, you know, it's going to be comparable, or maybe we'll see a 2 or 3% type increase, as best as you can tell at this stage? And then the other thing I wanted to ask is, please keep the council up on invitations to your meetings, the minutes of the meetings. You know, we'll make it a point, the financial reports, we'll make it a point to read these things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the last part first, 100%. This is just like any other body of the city. Publicly noticed meetings, agendas set on the city website, and minutes, once they're approved, submitted to the council. That's not even you don't even need to make that request. That's how it should operate, and that's how it will operate, so long as I think the folks that you see in this on this side are around. So no questions there. And to get to the idea around stability, I think it's too early for us to put a number on anything, because I don't want to say a number now and then have something you know. But stability, and this is why, you know, if we take a even further step back, how did this all start? This all started with, should we look at the GIC? Should we look at other options? And that's what led us to here. Our longtime brokers had done an analysis We reviewed it. It looked great. The mayor was able to secure a grant, which was approved by the council, that allowed for us to go out and secure the services of Cooking Company, that did their own analysis, completely independent of our brokers, right? Because if we went to the GIC, nothing against these two, I have a long-term working relationship with both of them. They're wonderful, but if we went to the GIC, we knew it meant no more brokers, so we need to make sure their numbers they're showing us are right, and that's exactly what we did. The numbers we received from them, the numbers received from our brokers, jived very well. I mean, everything and presented, and we've, I think, talked at length about that. So it was all with an eye towards stability. Now, is that achieved in year 1, in year 2, in year 3? I think that's the real expectation. And I even remember, if you look at the language of the original order, it talked about significant cost savings in the fiscal 25 budget. And when I came in front of this body, I was very clear that I thought that language shouldn't have been included the way it did. I understand why, because it sounds great, but the reality is you don't do this for savings in 1 year. This is really about the long-term health and financial solvency of the city and the trust, right? So this
But on the other hand, we can't be going up 10% a year.
I agree, but 10% is better than 20, which is what we were looking at with the self-insured, the fully insured plan. So the way I think we can leave this is that these meetings are going to become even more public than they had been when it was Section 19, because those weren't subject to open meeting. I mean, anybody could have come, you guys could have come, but it's not like there were no minutes. It's not a public meeting.
Right.
This process, if nothing else, is going to become even more transparent than it ever has been. And
will they be videoed like a lot of the other commissions?
I can't speak to that because I don't know what room we're going to be meeting in, if they're going to be able to be televised. But
consider that.
I personally think that but that's not what we're here to talk about.
Right.
I'd love to see all the subcommittees and boards be televised, but we'll have to see how that goes. But if nothing else, just through the nature of the minutes being submitted, the council's going to have that. And if there's something the council ever wants to have us come in and talk about again, whether it's ourselves, the trustees, the brokers, that's what we're here for, and we're always more than willing to come in and talk about these things. And we'll have more of an update on what fiscal 26 looks like. Realistically, we should have a good 6 months of claims data. So sometime after January, maybe in February, we'd at least be able to start scratching the surface on what that looks like. It really won't be until year 2, possibly into year 3, where we're able to do true long-term projections on where we're at.
Well, it certainly sounds like you guys have been doing the right thing and that you're happy with this, which means that we're happy with this, the employees are happy with this. So I thank you very much for all this work. I almost said Councilor O'Connor. Yeah, come to the microphone. Joe O'Connor.
If I could,
make sure the mic's on, Joe.
Former chairperson of the Section 19 committee, I just have to say our relationship with Rory, Kelly, and the brokers is a very, very good one.
Good.
I just came back from a conference in Boston about healthcare insurance down at Blue Cross Blue Shield, and at my table, that's what people talked about. It wasn't about insurance, it wasn't about the brokers, it was about their relationships with the city and the brokers, how bad they were.
Oh, wow.
I am I'm standing here before you saying our relationship between the city and the brokers with the Section 19 committee is so good.
Great.
I mean, it's one-stop shopping.
Good.
Anybody has a problem, you call, and they're there for us. I really do thank all of you and the mayor for everything that you have done, especially with the self-insurance.
Good for you.
We are working our way towards it, And Councilor Jordan, we did have a premium holiday during COVID for dental.
Oh, good.
We were self-insured on dental before we made the big jump with healthcare.
Excellent.
Once again, I thank everybody here.
Good for you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, anybody else have any questions or comments? Or?
No. Motion the order's been complied with.
Thank you guys so much. It's really appreciated.
Thank you.
Councilor Sullivan.
Have a good night.
Councilor Devine, yes. Councilor Jordan.
Yes.
Councilor Coco Givner. And Councilor Ocasio. And Councilor Ocasio.
Yes.
Okay. There you go. Now I'd like to have a little change in the agenda because I just found this out and I was wondering why there are police officers on the agenda. You may not know this, police officers, but I'm looking at a screen that has Jim Bartolome, Captain Isaiah Cruz, Officer Borrego. So I'm assuming, I've been told by Jeffrey that you may want to talk about item 11, which is about the status of off-duty blue. Is that why you're here?
Yes.
Okay, let me read it then. This was
I make a motion to remove item 11 from the table.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, this was ordered March 19, 2024, Murphy Romboletti. And again, my apologies, I didn't realize that you were here for that. Ordered that the City Council invite the Mayor, Police Department, and relevant financial department heads to a future meeting of the Finance Committee to provide an update on the status of off-duty police account and former vendor off-duty blue. So we've taken it off the table for discussion. And one thing I did want to say, the last time we spoke about this, we were given a itemized list of what was owed, and I'm not sure where that list is at this point. And again, I don't have it with me, so maybe you can fill us in on that.
Okay, well, we've had several meetings after this, and I assigned, I delegated this to Sergeant Bartolome and Officer Borrego, who've been doing, well, Officer Borrego's been dealing with off-duty blue and roll call for several years now. So at the time, back then, I wasn't familiar with it because, like I said, back then, I came out of operations into management. So today, I can tell you that we've had some meetings. Sergeant Bartolome has the numbers. We can answer some of these questions that Councilor Bartley brought up. So go ahead and ask the questions if you'd like.
Councilor, Madam Chair.
One second. Okay, Mayor, did you have something you'd like to say, or?
Yeah. So I appreciate the interim chief hitting the ground running in this role, running the police department, and also trying to catch up with a lot of things going on in the Holyoke PD. This has been an ongoing project, and I did wanted to chime in and also have Rory jump in and just to give you kind of like the high level overview of where we were, what has been going on, and what the update and status of the off-duty account is today, as far as not only where we are with addressing the previous deficits that have accumulated over time, but also the systems and practices that are in place currently that the chief can talk in, and then also as we continue to reconcile, obviously we're talking about, this has been in front of you guys for probably over a decade or so, maybe more or less, what we're doing to catch up with a lot of it, but also what we plan to do with whatever gap is left later once I know the reconciliation of the best we can has been made, and there's systems and practices in place to make sure that it's a smooth functioning system and we don't go backwards. At that point is when I look forward to come to the council and address whatever the gap is left in there, so we can clean up that gap and be at a I don't know, call it ground zero, more or less. Okay. But Rory, did you want to? Did I miss anything?
No.
Or share the?
Yeah. No. I think thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Chief, and the council. Briefly, I didn't know that this was going to be brought up tonight.
Welcome to the club.
Could have been a little bit better prepared. However, what I can speak to is the genesis of this order and where we're at now. And I think it will be welcome news to the council. I hope it's welcome news to the council. And I absolutely give credit to Chief Cruz and his team, many of whom are on here right now for the work they've done. The off-duty account, I mean, for folks that don't know, these are officers that work road details. I mean, we can get into more particulars, but that's what this is. The way it's structured is these officers are paid through city payroll. That's just the way it is. There's really not another way about going to make these payments to these officers. It happens through city payroll. In the past, there have been issues where work was being done and bills weren't being collected, full stop. Those are deficits that end up on the end of year balance sheet that have to be settled and may have an impact on free cash. A number of years ago, the police department started working with, let's just say, a third-party administrator, since we just finished talking about TPAs. And the way that works is they charge a 10% fee on top of whatever the road detail is. 5% goes to the TPA, the vendor that actually handles the assignments and collection and the invoicing, and then 5% comes to the city for administrative costs. We had, so I've only been in my position for just 2 years now, right? And since I've been here, we started with a vendor by the name of Roll Call. 6 months later, we went to a vendor called Off Duty Blue. And now we're back with Roll Call again. During the time we were with Off Duty Blue, the reason that they're mentioned in this order, there was a concern. Obviously, we were dealing with a different chief at the time, and nothing against the former chief. I just mean change in leadership at the police department, change in city staff, and change in council. Some new councilors, new folks, because I know we had talked about this with Councilors Tallman and McGivern early on in my tenure as treasurer. The concern at the time that we no longer have was that Off Duty Blue was not sending us timely reports, sending us timely funds. When they did send us funds, it was, here's just a bunch of money because we know we owe you money, but with no reconciliation on what jobs these were for. And we were very concerned at the time that we may be facing a significant deficit, in that off-duty account. We raised this issue to the mayor. The mayor talked with the city council president. That's why this order was filed. Now, since then, and I will certainly let the police talk more about this since it's theirs, we can just talk about the financial impact to the city. We've gone back to roll call. It has been night and day difference. We receive deposits on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. They send us reports that are easy to read that break down exactly who worked what details when for how many hours, so that we are able to easily reconcile if these 5 officers worked and they were paid out, it might be 2 payrolls ago by the time we actually catch up. As long as we're not looking at the end of the fiscal year or that kind of runoff time, we're able to apply cash receipts for those the next quarter of the following fiscal year. We're not looking at those serious deficits. Some of the lists that have been sent talk about old bills. We are currently collecting them, and by we, I don't mean the treasurer's office or the auditor's office. I mean, it's a combination of the law department and the police department going after those folks who maybe had a job. Some of these things go back 4 years. I mean, and when you actually go talk with them, you find out maybe there was a record-keeping issue, maybe the bill was actually due, maybe it was paid. But we're talking about smaller things, not this kind of larger issue that we were facing at the time. So I'm happy to report from a payroll perspective and from a cash receipt perspective, we are in a much better position now than we were when this order was originally filed. Recently, As Chief mentioned, he spoke with counselors Bartley and Murphy Romboletti. A meeting was held here, actually the very first meeting I've ever had in the back room of the City Council chambers. And we came up with a very good plan. I'll let them speak to that as far as making sure that everybody on both sides, that they are fully aware, the police department's fully aware of where our concerns are. We heard them, we heard the council's concern, and I think we came up with a good system for reporting. So again, I apologize for not being better prepared as far as having numbers and reports in front of me, but that's what got us to where we are today, and we are in a good spot.
No apology necessary. I'm just glad it seems like it's improving from the list that we got the last time. And when you switch from roll call to off-duty blue, do you have a contract? And how do you go about just switching like that?
Yep, so there is a contract. I believe it's been submitted to the council for, you know, to have for your records.
Okay.
It's not the type of contract that would come in front of the council per se, but there is a contract. It's executed between the mayor and the police department. And just so we're all clear, because I know there's a few different names and it's been like a carousel. Our current vendor is Roll Call. Okay. ROLLKALL, Roll Call. They're wonderful. They're great to deal with. And Off-Duty Blue, I just think we were a much larger account than what they were expecting to have. That was our experience with them. It was, well, we're building a new spreadsheet so we can show you the reporting. And when you've got the auditor's office and the treasurer's office coming together agreeing that we're really looking at an issue here, and the mayor and the police, everybody, the police department, absolutely to their credit, heard that, pivoted, and went back to roll call after they demanded that they make some changes to their own processes.
Right. When we went back to roll call, when it, you know, obviously the vendor heard loud and clear what our original concerns were, what the police department's concerns were. We go to off-duty blue. We're going back to roll call, and it was an opportunity for them to really kind of step up their game a little bit from previous experiences. And so it sounds like to me that from what is being reported, and that they're in a much, much better position, not only with the previous vendor that we left, but also, you know, our original relationship with roll call when the police department originally left. So that's good.
And I think that again, if I had known, I would have brought that list. But we did get a list before, a couple months ago at least, I think. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, now that we have this new roll call and everything seems to be working better, at some point in the future, could we have another list so we can see how much better we're doing?
I would like to suggest we continue to leave this on the table and we come back with that so we can continue the conversation. When they first brought this up to me, right when these issues were going on with the previous vendor, immediately Tessa, we need to update the council, make sure they're fully aware ahead of time of what's going on.
Right.
While we also continue to do what we need to do to fix it and all that. Every month we have a finance team meeting, the engine, and this is on the agenda every month, getting an update on where we are, where are we going, what's going on. And it sounds like to me it's getting better and better, so that's great. But I'd suggest, let's continue to leave it on the table so that we can make sure that everyone's on the same page here.
If I could, if we could hear from the police officers, and you could tell us what you started out with and where you're at now. And just for full disclosure, I'll embarrass him, but the first job I ever had was at Friendly's, and Jim's dad was my boss. I don't think he was born yet, but
man, that was a long time ago.
Long time ago. So if you could tell us how you think it's going.
I was part of the meeting with Rory and the auditor and Councilor Bartley and Romboletti. I think we had a good meeting. We're in the process of putting together an SOP at the police department to explain exactly how roll call works so that everybody on the council can understand from the bidding process when companies call in to get details, how they go about paying for those details, whether they have credit cards on file with us, whether they pay in advance, whether some of them are allowed to pay afterwards. I'm looking at a list right now, an off-duty list that's from September of this year, and there are some large numbers on here that we're chasing after, but almost 1/3 of the list is city entities, the electric division, the gas division, the high school, Holyoke Athletics. Then another large portion is the mall, and we're not sure that that number is exactly correct, but between the mall and the city entities, they make up better than 2/3 of the list that we're chasing down right now. We've made some calls and reached out to these vendors to try and recoup some of the money ourselves from the police department. But what they're asking for, and you can only imagine, nobody wants to pay a bill just because we ask. They want to know dates and times of our details. So we're reaching back out to Off-Duty Blue and requesting that they give us the dates and details. Now, they've been pretty good with us, but remember, we no longer employ them. They're no longer a company that works for us. So we're reaching out and looking for information from them. And they're still being cordial to us and trying to get us that stuff. So some of these things that we're chasing after, we're waiting for Off-Duty Blue to get back to us with some dates so that we can go to the vendors and say, these were the dates that we accrued, we accrued these numbers. There was some confusion in the last meeting, I believe, with looking at numbers that were paid out as opposed to numbers that we still needed to collect. So the numbers, I think, in the last meeting when some of the counselors were upset were like $1.2 million, and we were looking at the wrong list. The $1.2 million was numbers that we had already collected, that vendors had already paid to us. And the number that we're actually looking at right now on my September list is $120,000, which isn't a small number, but like I said, 2/3 of that is the city and the mall. So we're going to continue reaching out to these people and trying to get all this collected. But as Rory explained, Off-Duty Blue had a bad habit of just sending in a big check and not telling anybody where the money was from. So we have a list of vendors who owe money, but we're not even sure if these numbers are correct because of Off-Duty Blue's calculating. We are working on that SOP. We will have that. We agreed with the counselors that we will have that to you by the end of December, and that will explain a little better on what we do here at the police station.
Great, thank you. Counselors, any questions?
I had a quick question.
Counselor Sullivan first and Counselor
Sure.
Jordan.
So besides collecting the money from the vendors and stuff like that, wasn't one of the things that roll call or Off-Duty Blue, they were supposed to straighten out? There was an issue with reserve officers or auxiliary officers not getting paid. Was that part of this all? And is that going better now, or do we still have officers that are, a year without getting paid, 6 months without getting paid, 18 months without getting paid?
I'm not sure about that. I know that the reserve officers or specials that we auxiliaries, when we did away with our reserve crew who used to get paid through the HPD like the regular full-time officers, it became a little different because they're now 1099 employees and they get paid directly from the vendors, that smaller group of specials. So I can look into that for you, Counselor. I'm not positive where we stand on that, but I will look into that and get back to you.
If I may, I can speak to that. Hi, I'm Officer Borrego. At one point in time, those auxiliary officers at that time were not getting paid into the vendors paid their amounts. Currently, through roll call, we have agreement where they get paid directly right away because they paid up what they call RK pay through roll call, so they get paid immediately, even before our officers. So that's not an issue at all. And they also get insurance through roll call, through that program.
Okay, well that sounds like a hell of an improvement, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Counselor Jordan?
Yeah. My question is, who's the ultimate city employee who's responsible for the relationship with roll call and is responsible for receiving the reporting requirements from the company? And i.e., obviously something is being given to the treasurer's office to include it in pay. So who is the ultimate responsible party that's getting the reporting?
Yep. So I think that the ultimate managing the relationship, it's a vendor of the police department. I think at its core, it's a vendor of the police department. The SOP that the police department referenced and they're going to be distributing would include everything soup to nuts, right? So like from the time somebody needs to call for a detail all the way to we've received the funds for that. In between, when I referenced payroll, if an officer works, and let's not talk, that's your question about the special auxiliary aside, because that's its own thing. We're talking about regular sworn officers of the city that get a road detail. If they work a road detail during a pay period, they're paid out the following pay period. Mm-hmm. That essentially is where this deficit was coming from.
No, I understand the problem. My question is, who is ultimately responsible?
The police department enters that payroll.
Okay. And who at the police department is responsible for this? Is this assigned by the chief, or is it the chief himself? Like, who's managing this?
Well, I would say payroll.
Payroll. Payroll, is there a person in payroll at the police that manages this? These reports from roll call?
Yeah, that would be, I think, the former, there was the bookkeeper position. The longtime employee recently left. They've just hired a new person. They just hired somebody new, so that would be the person at the police department.
So that's an admin, though?
Yes.
An admin is in charge of our relationship with roll call.
No. I'm saying I think the answer to that question is the chief, and I don't want to speak for the chief.
Chief, do you personally review either on a monthly or some regular cadence the reporting from roll call that would have when people work, when people? Because one of the things if I'm listening carefully, I was told that city departments in the mall are saying, we're not willing to pay the bill until we know specifically what days, times, hours we're being billed for. So I'm assuming roll call is producing a report on some monthly cadence to you or whoever's in charge of this, specifying all that detail. Otherwise, what detail are you providing, or your admin is providing to the treasurer's office so that payment would go into someone's paycheck? There must be a report. So I'm at a loss as to what we're waiting for from roll call.
If I can, I think I can answer that. With roll call, we're not having this issue. This is an off-duty blue issue that we're
okay. Well, then with off-duty blue, then when they were in charge, who was receiving those reports?
And I think that the combination of the police department, the law offices, and trying to go back and get this money. And when I said that I was reaching out to the off-duty blue to get dates for when the money was accrued, it's not that the companies are saying we're not paying you. It's when we call and say this is what's owed, they say, can you get us invoices to show us what it is? Because it's been, like Rory said, it's been a year and a half now since we've been away from off-duty blue, and they're not just willing, companies aren't just willing to send us checks now because we're saying, hey, you owe us money. So we're doing the extra steps to get back with off-duty blue to get dates and that, so that we can show exactly what's owed to the city that's already been paid out to the officers. Now, the officers have, through the app that we use, and one of our sergeants at the police station who is in charge of details and takes those phone calls and puts the details out, that's how we follow what's supposed to be paid out and what's supposed to be, how the officers get paid. As far as payment in, that happens through roll call and off-duty blue, and that's a combination of the officers who work with the company roll call or off-duty blue, and our bookkeeper.
Okay. So we have the detail when we need to provide it to the treasurer's office for people to get paid, but we don't have the detail when it's necessary to give it to the vendor who purchased the service from us, right? Like, for example, what is the holdup? Like, we should already have that data, is my point, because we already provided the information. So if I'm billing you $1,000 for a road job because I had X officer for umpteen hours on these dates, that information must be in our possession because we provided it to the treasurer's office for the people to get paid. So now I'm at a loss to understand how we don't have that information that we could hand it to the gas and electric or the water department or the Holyoke Mall or Lord knows who else we are trying to collect from. Like, we have that information in our possession.
Not from off-duty blue. That's where the...
Well, we must have, because who provided when off? People were still getting paid.
No, I understand.
From off-duty blue.
If I could, can I just ask a clarifying question? Because
Sure.
I think I get where you're going, but I want to make sure.
Yep.
And so the payroll reports, the way the payroll gets entered, it's a total amount, right? So I understand what you're saying, and then how do you get to the total amount? Wouldn't there be some kind of a backup?
Well, someone must say, I worked on October 22nd for 4 hours on X road job for certain vendor.
Yep. So those are the reports that we were talking about that we were having a difficult time with. Those are the reports. I just pulled up the one that I just got last week, and I don't want to, go through everybody's individual names, but I can just tell you, like, right now, independent of payroll, and this is where the checks and balances come into play, right? The police department does, enters their payroll, and they say, Officer Jones worked 4 hours of a road detail. They're going to get paid out of the road detail account. This is the GL line, and they get paid. Right. It's not, we don't get, nor does their payroll person necessarily know that Officer Jones worked for gas and electric at the corner of Walnut and whatever.
Why don't we know that?
Well, this is what the document that the police department said they're putting together to present to the council. I couldn't answer that. I'm not trying to deflect. I just simply don't know the answer to that. But what I can tell you.
So your office doesn't have backup for the hours that people work?
We get a timesheet. We get a time.
And it doesn't say who they were doing these off-duty jobs for?
No, it's the total. It's the total amount, and it's my office.
Oh, that's not good.
The police.
That's why they're straightening
But the
out.
police department, the chief signs off on those.
Yeah.
The chief signs off on those, and then they come and then they go to the auditor's office for review. And we do question. I mean, believe me, if we see a large number, we get questions. But where the check and balance comes in, and this is what I just pulled up, is so now with the level of detail that we're getting on a regular basis from roll call, the new vendor, I can then look and say, okay, Officer X, I'm gonna not mention individuals' names here. Officer X had a job rate of $54 an hour. They were invoiced for 8 hours of time to Detour Construction. I have all that information here. There's an invoice ID. There's a job ID.
Beautiful.
All of this information. That level of detail hadn't existed until the past, 6 months or longer.
So okay.
That isn't to say that it didn't exist in some other format. It did. And I think that...
So we've been doing this for 20 years, and we just decided 6 months ago that we needed that level of detail?
I can't speak to the way things were done.
Well, I mean, but I guess my point is, we've had this isn't, as, I won't be as upset about it as Councilor Bartley was the other day, but his anger is righteous in one respect because, well, in many respects, but he is pointing out, I remember the first go around here 20 years ago when we were 200 grand short.
Yeah.
And it's all going to be better.
Yeah.
And then it happened again. and then it happened again.
Yeah.
And then it happened again.
Yep.
And now it's happening again. So the point is, like, I mean, how many, like, I guess what I'm trying to understand is, like, now we're still chasing this vendor for the obvious, like, for example, if I'm the G&E and you can't tell me, like, in
Sure.
the city's possession today, we're saying that we're waiting on this company who's over their head.
Yep.
We don't know what days, times, hours, what job, and now they're like, well, I'm not going to pay you until you tell me this information. And hopefully these folks from a year ago or whatever are now going to come and give us. And I guess my point is, I'm just disappointed, I guess, that we don't have that yet. We were paying people for specific days, specific times, and specific jobs that we can't reconstruct that information to do an invoice. And we're now still waiting from this off-duty blue, is my point.
You're right, and I think that there's a few different things at play here that'll help clarify this. So the September list that was discussed with, you know, some things for gas and electric or some things for the mall, or that's all within a current aging, right? So I don't know that those are necessarily the ones we're having the issues with. I know we talked about that in the same kind of breath. The ones where we absolutely have had issues with aren't from 90 days or 12 months. These are things that we're now looking at from 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Officers that are long since retired, you know, we're not talking in that big numbers, but, you know, there was a fast food establishment in downtown that it turns out owed us $6,000. They were on the list. We worked with the police department. We figured out what that was, and we went off, and the legal department, absolutely, and we went after them, and we collected on that. Sometimes when we go to those folks, the response we've gotten back is, well, wait, I thought I paid you. Can you give me an invoice? Well, we don't have the actual invoice because that's what we have the TPA for. We're trying to get the invoice from them in order to do it.
Wouldn't they have their own canceled check?
Well, we ask these questions, but this is exactly what we're going through. And trust me, we go and
Let me ask you this: when someone stiffs you the first time, do you make them prepay?
Yes. Okay. Yes, and in fact, that's one of the things that we discussed in our meeting. Not just prepay, and again, the police department are putting together this SOP to give to you, but not just prepay. You need to, whether it's prepay, you need to have a credit card on file that we can bill.
Right.
You know, there's some normal churn, right? There's, yes, the construction job that G&E called for 90 days ago, maybe they're on a list showing that they have a balance because they haven't paid because they're waiting for their contract. We've got to figure that out. That's not, I'm not trying to excuse it. That's just sometimes the normal course of doing business. But those types of things get cured within the fiscal year or within that kind of 3-month period to post those receipts. Then we're not looking at the deficit. I would also say that the processes that are in place now, the team that is at the police department, the team we have internally, you know, this is something that we're constantly looking at and reviewing. And I can't speak to the way things were done 20 years ago. I'd find it hard to believe that this same level of detail, you know, that this was all being reviewed with the same level of detail we currently are. I mean, to the point where every payroll, the auditor's office is reaching out to the payroll person saying, I see so many hours, can you prove to me that so many hours were actually worked? That doesn't mean that the payroll department is saying, yes, here's the invoice to Detour Construction. It's, yes, I verified with the sergeant who signed off on this time, who saw and monitored the work that had actually happened to prove. So there is, it's just some, when we're talking about the receipts being posted, the money coming in from, because keep in mind, Detour, and I apologize if anybody from Detour is watching. I'm certainly not picking on you because you're paying us. Obviously, I see your name on this list as being paid. They're not paying us directly. They're paying roll call. roll call in turn is sending us those funds.
No, I understand.
So that's where there was a disconnect on both sides.
Okay.
And that's what was causing the deficit. We thought it was fixed. I seriously thought after my first go around with a different council, newly appointed to the treasurer's role, I thought things that were heading in the right direction, as you mentioned. That same story we've heard before. Quickly realized maybe that wasn't the case, and that's what brought us here. But we're in a very different position than we were then and had been even years before.
Mayor Garcia wanted to say something.
No, just on Councilor Jordan's point about who is in charge, and a lot of these issues, and over the years, as Councilor Jordan referenced, right, it was resolved, then we're back again, it was resolved, and then Councilor Bartley's frustration is largely blame just a crappy internal controls system. The way that I look at it, and they're putting their internal systems at play to make sure there's clear point of whoever's in charge of reporting X to Y to Z. As far as my oversight is concerned, and we just had a department head meeting today, and we were talking about revenue turnovers, and there was a department head that wanted a heads up to his employee who was in charge of doing revenue turnovers or whatever, and I quickly jumped in and I said, no, the person in charge of revenue turnovers is you, the department head. A lot of department heads assign these tasks to a lot of people and assume things are taken care of, which later we need to get our department heads in the habit of making sure that they are on top of what is essentially their responsibility as a department head when it comes to revenue turnover and addressing deficits, that and handling personnel matters. But since we're talking about money, revenue, turnovers, and deficits, we have now a year-end process, and there is a message going around clearly. We were also talking about where we are with projects that are funded via grants and are reimbursable, to make sure that we're on target with not only completing the project, but making sure that we're submitting the reimbursement requests on time before year-end closing and transitioning into the next fiscal year. The direction we're going, councilors, just so you understand, and the one department head that's on currently, and this is something that we talk about with all department heads, is if we can't get it right, department heads we're gonna start holding department heads a little strongly accountable to these issues, which means that if we're not addressing deficits, if we're not properly turning over revenue as expected in our financial management policies, if we're not, then it's not okay, don't worry about it. It's going to be a little bit more of progressive discipline, I guess is what we're calling it, to make sure that the message is clear. I think what's happening here is just, again, the department heads assign it to somebody, there were some issues. We got a new vendor. That vendor problem with Off-Duty Blue, I wouldn't necessarily blame the department head on that one. It was clearly an issue with the vendor. I know we had Lisa get on top of it, and she collected a lot, and then quickly we learned that, like Rory said, I think we were just too big for them, where we weren't getting at all. They were sending us money. Rory didn't know where to post it because we didn't know where the money went, and when we would ask them, they weren't very clear, and really quick, that's when we were like, let's get this in front of the council, explain, and quickly the department head, the police department here in this matter, quickly pivoted and left them and came up with new systems and practices and policies. But for everyone that's here tonight, what we need to understand is moving forward, making sure that you're getting your reports, we're getting reimbursed, all that stuff is working, but the department head specifically needs to continue to meet with their team that's responsible for this, monitor this, I would say probably on a monthly basis, to make sure that everything is in order, that things are, so that way when we're in the year-end process, getting ready to transition over to 26, that we've collected everything and that account's at zero. There's currently about 120,000 variants, as you heard from Bartholomew, where I think, who knows, from many years ago, it might have been misposted somewhere. No one knows whether or not it was even collected. Maybe a company went out of business. we'll have to address later. I don't want to come to a proposal yet in front of the council to clear that yet until I know that we've collected as much as we could and that there's a system in place currently to make sure we never go backwards. And then on top of that, you know, as we go forward, to be sure that we never go backwards. If we do, that department heads are going to be held accountable for whatever systems might be broken within the department.
And I see Officer Borrego has his hand up. Do you want to say something?
Yes, I just want to address, we know what the, our system in place, we know what the officers work with roll call. We know how long they work. We know when they clock in, clock out on a detail. Also, roll call has a system in place where to just make sure the is invoiced correctly, they send the invoice to the client, verify that's the correct amount, and then it gets approved, and then that's how our officer gets paid through the payroll. So we keep track of all that, and the payroll report goes to our payroll clerk at the police department, and it says the jobs, the hours, the rate, how it translates to the city. I'm not sure. We had an old clerk that was there for a while, and she's not there anymore. But if she was there, we probably would be able to get the old payroll reports from Off-Duty Blue. But we no longer have access to that system. But through roll call, we have access to all that information on roll call details. And I can answer any question having to do with that.
I just want, I think, did you want to say something, Councilor Sullivan? No. My only suggestion is we're going to table this. When would you like us to come back? When would you like us to have you come back to us?
I would say after December, Jimmy, we made an agreement that we would have the answers to Councilor Bartley after December.
Yeah, we said that we would have the SOP put together by the end of December, so I would say after that.
January 2025. We'll table that until that sometime in January of 2025.
Yes, and in the meantime, we'll continue to try and collect as much revenue as we can.
Well, sounds like you have a good team, and we appreciate what you're doing. And I know it's tough, like going backwards. But if that's okay with this committee, I'd like a motion to table this until after January of 2025.
Second.
Councilor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilor DeVine, yes. Councilor Jordan.
Yes.
Councilor Ocasio.
Yes.
And Councilor Givner.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Police Department. Appreciate your patience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. And I think if we could take item 10 out of order, this is
So moved.
Ordered that there be and hereby appropriated by transfer fiscal year 2025 $30,000 as follows: from Mayor CAFO position to elections officers $30,000. Brenna could not be here today, but she did. There is a letter here, and please accept my sincere apologies for not being able to attend tonight's finance meeting to speak about the following transfer. This transfer request is to pay for a special election that will be held on January 28th, 2025. These funds will go directly to the cost of holding the election, including poll workers, movers, printing ballots, programming memory cards, equipment transportation, and overtime. And if you have any questions, she's free to answer them if you want to call her office. But I think it's pretty self-explanatory. And we've sort of been waiting for this transfer.
Yep.
So do I hear a motion to?
Motion to approve.
Okay. Councilor Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilor DeVine, yes. Councilor Jordan?
Yes.
Councilor Ocasio? Yes. And Councilor Givner?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And we have one more item. This doesn't look familiar to me.
I've never seen it before.
No, it's new. Item number 10, or 9, excuse me, ordered that they're hereby appropriated by transfer in fiscal year 2025 $108,695.56 as follows: from cannabis stabilization to claims and damages. Do I hear a motion to take it off the table for discussion?
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Again, this has been before us several times. I'm not sure what your pleasure is. we just take a vote on this and send it to the city council, or if you want to discuss it again. I think we've certainly discussed this a lot, unless the mayor has something to add. Anybody?
Well, I guess the only thing I'll add is I think it should stay tabled until we discuss it in executive session. This is where the substantive question is discussed. The only thing I will say is in the agenda, I see some erroneous information here. I see something that says that it passed on October 8th by a vote of 7-6 at the council. It says the report of the committee received and passed 2 readings, adopted on a call of yeas and nays. And then I see a presentation to the mayor on October 2nd and the mayor's signature on October 2nd. This is purporting to say that this was adopted, and I would suggest that it didn't.
Maybe we can.
In fact, the council ultimately, I believe either this was refiled or is that in error or what? But
I think it was refiled. Perhaps the best thing to do would be to table it until we can get all the parties together.
Agreed.
And go through whatever it is we need to go through. And
yeah, because I think we want to discuss the strategies around the logic behind the 108. I don't think we have a consensus on that. And I think the law department was advising we discuss it in executive session.
Executive session. Okay. So, Councilor Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilor DeVine, yes. Councilor Jordan?
Yes.
Councilor Ocasio? And Councilor Givner?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Yes. And thank you, everybody, for your participation today.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. I vote yes on adjourning.
Yes.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Have a good night.